Welcome to this week's edition of the Carvel Community Meeting. Today's date is July 12th, 2023. If you're watching this recording from home, we encourage you to come join us live. We meet every second and fourth Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. It's a good opportunity for you to come and meet the team, meet others in the community. You can listen in on what we're working on. You can bring up anything you wish to discuss with the team, provide feedback, or just sit and listen, and you don't have to engage if that's not your thing, but we would love to have you. For those that are on today's meeting and you have something you do wish to discuss, you can just add that to the discussion topic section at the end of the agenda here, and we will get to it towards the close of the meeting. If you're unable to join the meeting, you still want to get a hold of us, we have several other ways you can reach out. You can find us in the Carvel channel in the Kubernetes Slack workspace. You can email us. You can find us in GitHub, with any of our project repos. You can raise an issue there or add a question, whatever. And then you can also find us on Twitter at Carvel_dev. At any point you are interacting with us or any other members of the community, we ask that you please read and abide by our code of conduct. And moving on to the agenda. So we post this in the start of all agenda. We have created this pinned issue where we are gathering as many details as we can from folks who are using Carvel. So if you are using any of the Carvel tools, we would love to know more about how you're using it. So we've created this issue. You can add a comment here and then just provide the information that we request here down below. And optionally, you can add your company's logo, and we would get that added to the adopters file here. It's just a really good way for us to understand how people are using the Carvel tools, help with our development process, and also helps the community understand how folks are using the Carvel tools and help them in ways that they may have not fully understood how to use their Carvel tools. So it's a really good way to just help, win-win for everybody in the community and the maintainers alike. And then adding the logo to the adopters file, it helps to, bring the confidence in Carvel tools to everybody in the community, to showcase, who all is using the Carvel tools. So we would really appreciate you to add that in here. And if you have any questions, just let us know. And for those that are attending today's meeting, just make sure you add your name and any organization you're representing in the attendees list below. It is optional, so if you don't feel comfortable doing that, that's okay. But we just want to keep track of who is all attending our meetings. Moving on to announcements and updates. So hiring update. I just wanted to hear if we have those positions filled. I didn't see that when I tried to look, looks like they were no longer posted.
I can quickly give an update. We do have 2 people identified for the positions, and we have made an offer. One has accepted and joining beginning of September. Other person has also verbally accepted. We are waiting for them to officially accept it in the system, and then I will confidently say yes, they're joining. However, they might be joining a little later than September, I think around October, because they have a 3-month lock-in period with their current company. And was happy to see that one of those folks, Prem, he has joined the Carvel channel in Kubernetes. Happy to see him there.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's really good to see the team growing by 2, and that was a quick turnaround, and super excited to have those folks coming. And did we have any more openings on the horizon, or are these the two for now? Do you know, or can you share?
Yeah, these are the two for now. But we never know. Hopefully something else might happen in the next 2-3 months' time. I'll let Anthony speak more about that.
Great, awesome. That's so good to hear. Can't wait to meet them. All right, moving on to content. So we have our very own Thomas Vital. Is that how you say your last name? Vitali?
Vitale.
Vitali. He will be doing a talk at Kubernetes Days Munich on supercharge your Kubernetes platform with Carvel. You can get your tickets here at this Eventbrite link if you're going to be in the area. We highly encourage you to do that. Thank you, Thomas, for talking on Carvel, and can't wait to hear all about it. Is it going to be recorded? Do you know?
I hope so, but I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Do you want to? Is there anything else you wanted to say about this?
So I'll share then slides and source code, but the idea is to go through, the main Carvel tools. The presentation will be based on like problem solution, so presenting different problems when building platforms, and then how Carvel can help solving those problems. So it's very hands-on presentation.
Oh wow, that's going to be a good one. I love the hands-on stuff. That's how I learn. Yeah. All right. Well, if it's recorded in any way, we will be able to share it later, and then otherwise we'll share the slides and anything else you have. So we would like to hear if anyone else is speaking on Carvel or writing a blog post on Carvel, creating a video, anything like that. So we created this doc here in our GitHub repo where you can input what you're sharing, and we will either post it to our blog post or share it on Twitter or share it in this meeting. We want to make sure we're promoting everyone in the community who is speaking on Carvel or sharing any knowledge they have of Carvel, and making sure it's spread far and wide and all the community knows about it. So please let us know, and if you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out. Okay, moving on to status updates. So project roadmap stuff for YTT, the support emitting comments and resulting YAML. We will go over that in a moment. So the next one is Carvel overall, the signature and SLSA attestation for all Carvel artifacts. Do we have any updates for these two here?
So about the first one, hopefully very soon in the next few days, I'll upload the first draft for an RFC in the Carvel GitHub repo in the RFC section. I left a comment on the issue about that.
That's really cool, Thomas. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And then the Carvel supports the ability to sign and verify assets.
It's still on me. I'm gonna get back in the next meeting with more stuff there. But Thomas really pointed out something really cool about that today. But that's a discussion topic.
All right. Thank you, Samik. Moving on to backlog stuff. Secret gen controller. who wants to give some details about that?
Secretgen-controller. Yeah, we've been working with, I believe his name is Joe. I don't know. To get a PR going through the lines. He's been doing some changes. I do believe that the PR is ready for merge. I haven't had time to go through it today, but it's pretty cool. Secretgen will be able, you'll be able to tell a secret that you want them to be copied to not a particular namespace, but a particular namespace that has a particular property. So for example, it has an annotation with a particular value, or that does not have an annotation with a particular name, things like that. And I think that's pretty cool. In some sense, it is a little bit on the dangerous side, this feature, because it opens up the door for you to do something that you're not expecting to do. Because, like, for example, if you ask for a secret to be copied to a namespace that has like an annotation, somebody else can create a secret and get that secret on their namespace, right? So that's a little bit of a dangerous feature, but it is a pretty interesting use case that Rancher people have, and the PR looks pretty good. So I think I'll pull the trigger on it today, eventually, if I do have a little bit of time. So great job, Joe. I'm gonna go with Joe here. Thank you for your contribution.
All right, thanks.
I will
Joe.
just add on that one thing. While it may be dangerous, hopefully it'll stop people from using the just asterisks for all namespaces that I see everywhere. So it's dangerous, but much less dangerous than what I see everyone doing.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point.
Yeah, I might add that it might help using secretgen-controller with B clusters. So having the multi-tenancy based on virtual clusters rather than namespaces. So it sounds like you might be using that use case as well. So super cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joao, and thanks, Thomas and Scott, for that. And then Renu says, Joao, thinking of adding the Carvel accepted tag on the secretgen-controller. And then, yeah, Thomas, that might help with using secretgen-controller with V clusters as well. All right, anything else on that one before we move on? Cool, and thanks, Joe. I'm gonna try and reach out to you and see if I can get some more information and send you some swag. Moving on to kapp-controller. So working with Usman to get through the finish line, the PR that allows users to configure a default sync period for package installs globally.
Yeah, so that was merged yesterday. And yes, like we've been looking into this feature. It is associated with a different issue that's somewhat different. But what this new feature allows us to do is to basically, when you have, if you don't define like previously on kapp-controller, if you didn't define a sync period for a package install, it would use a default that was hard-coded. So now from this point on, you'd be able to set on the configuration of kapp-controller, like what is the sync period that you want by default for package installs, and it will be applied if you don't have a package install sync period defined. So that's pretty cool, and thank you for Usman for your contribution.
Yes, thank you, Usman. Hope you're doing well if you're watching this. Okay, moving on to CAP.
So I guess Praveen had put in the cap PR in there, but he didn't put in the link, but I'm gonna hope this is what he was talking about. So we actually merged a PR from Tim last week. And so what we were dealing with here is now while cap is doing the diff, it has two modes. It either tries to diff from the cluster or from the diff from the resource stored in the resource itself. I know that's weird, but we store sort of a cache of the resource in an annotation, and it sometimes uses that. And in certain scenarios, we are running into this case where the status from the resource on the cluster has changed while cap was diffing and fetches it for the second time. And cap used to error out then. So this led to some flakiness in their pipelines. So Tim actually did I think this PR needed some understanding about how diffing and cap works. So shout out to Tim for actually doing that work and putting up a PR. Yeah, I guess that's what it's about. So now we essentially exclude statuses wherever we are fetching the resource from while diffing. So yeah, thanks to Tim.
All right, great. Thanks, Salmek, for that. And thank you, Tim, for this contribution. Anybody have anything else they wish to say on this before we move on? Okay. And then next we have the Carvel CLI tools, security vulnerabilities.
Yep. Yeah, this I have heard. So yeah, this is something that we are doing actively to like some external known security vulnerabilities that we are getting on the CLI tools, Carvel CLI tools, and we are actively triaging the CVs and like resolving and like bumping up the versions and what else required to resolve them. And yeah, so like this week itself we have released KC40 1.9. Like it has two CVs that were there, so we have released 41.9 for that, and we'll be actively doing that for 44 dot of kapp-controller and other tools as well, as we have figured out an ACV. So yeah, that's there on that. That is.
All right. Thank you so much. Any comments or questions on that? And I just saw Eugene joining. Hey, Eugene, it's your first meeting, I believe.
Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, I'm just this is my first meeting, and I'm here just for listening at this moment.
Yeah, thank you. And we're looking forward to your presentation July 26th.
Yeah, I remember that. I have something to talk about, but yeah, I need to prepare. And
Yeah.
well, the primary question of what I need to how much information I can expose, first of all.
Okay, yeah, we feel free to DM me and I can help out with that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to K control.
Yep, it's me. So I was actually working with some folks downstream, and they sort of expressed this pain point that if you're using cable to create your images, like build your images when you're releasing a package, at times when it's not running in a CI, let's say in a CI, it's fine. It's just one shot and go, right? But if you're playing around with it manually, you might want to not build it every time. And so we had some existing work going on around how a user can supply like a custom image log file into a package. So yeah, so there's one open PR for that, and we'll sort of have to explore what the experience would look like if a user wants to not build again while playing around with things manually, right? So yeah, that's what that's about. That's something we'll be looking into in the next weeks.
All right, thanks, Samik. And can you link that PR if it's
Oh
available?
yeah, I'll do that. Yes.
Cool. Any questions or comments on this before we get into the big meat down here? All right, so what we've all been waiting for, the discussion on the feature requests in YTT supporting omitting comments and resulting YAML. Varsha, do you want to take this?
Yeah, sure. Hi,
Want me to
everyone.
Stop sharing my screen. Or
Yeah,
what would be best?
I can share my screen. It's fine. Are you able to see the emitting comments proposal?
Yep.
Yeah, so for YTT, we had received many requests for adding a facility that can help users emit comments through YTT templates. So we kind of went through the issue that was created for this and went through a lot of comments, discussions that happened. And so basically this proposal basically came like aggregates all the requests that we received, and basically we are planning to get some consensus on the next steps in this effort. We kind of broke down this problem into two separate parts where we can emit comments using annotation, and the other problem that we got to know, that is YTT being able to generate YTT to be processed later. So for this proposal, the goal is basically how to emit YAML comments from YTT templates. And we have gathered requirements, assessed the customer impacts and the possible risks. And then we have provided some possible solutions with pros and cons for implementation. So the first part of this proposal says like emit comments from YAML templates, where configuration authors want YTT to provide a facility to emit comments from templates that will provide some extra context to the configuration files, so that the users can see those comments and guess like what happened, but like what kind of overlays are applied, or any source information that was needed for the configuration users to further use those templates. So these comments would work as a reference for configuration consumers who may need to just read and understand or make some changes in their configuration files. The other part of problem statement is generate YTT with YTT, where configuration authors want to generate YTT and kind of a pre-processed template of YTT and to be processed later again in the second pass. So as part of the first problem statement, basically we are going to add some extra context in the configuration templates, where we are proposing that configuration authors can add YAML comments via @YAML comment annotation, followed by quotes surrounding the comment. So these comments will appear in the final output as a valid YAML comment, #space, and that without quotes only if the emit comments flag is set to true. So that is an extra added flag that we are planning to use, so that this feature will be turned on and off based on a flag. So example use cases like single line comment, if we have #YAML comment over here, it will appear in the output as #space. And then there can be multi-line comments as well. And yeah, there are some implementation details added in the proposal. This may benefit to our customers because we are adding extra context in the templates itself. And as platform operators read that final output from YTT, having these kind of helpful comments help them understand why certain overlays or why certain values are appearing, which overlays they are coming from, or any other information that the authors wanted to pass on to the readers. And it may also help trace changes made by complex overlays. So this would really help. There are certain risks in even implementing this part of adding YAML comments. Those we have listed down here, where basically we need to use YAML v3 package, YAML package for Go. We currently are using YAML v2, and which does not allow emitting comments in any format. So this is the underlying library that we need to vendor in, and that itself causes a lot of breaking changes, because our YTT output might be different for when we are using YAML v2 and when we are using YAML v3. There might be a lot of testing involved in this scenario. So there are some possible solutions how we can integrate two libraries together. So we are kind of proposing replacement of YAML v2 by YAML v3. That can be complete replacement. But so we have listed some pros and cons for it. Then the second approach can be patch the vendored YAML v2 only to allow emitting comments and keeping rest of it as it is. The third approach can be a hybrid, where we use Marshal with YAML v3 only if emit comments flag is true, and unmarshalling will be done as it is with YAML v2. So this would be the hybrid, and the fourth option can be unmarshal with YAML v2 and marshal with YAML v3. So all of these are listed in this proposal with each pros and cons. And yeah, there are certain points that we found in some other repos, how they have handled migrating to YAML v3. So there are certain efforts that we are keeping an eye on. There are other known risks where there are certain open issues in Go YAML since 2021. And for example, the header comments get emitted as footer comments. So sometimes this may affect us, these kind of issues may affect us, because YTT needs comments on top of the particular annotation or on top of particular node to be able to explain properly. But yeah, there are risks, but there are benefits too on this approach. The second approach is second problem statement that we received from customers is generate YTT with YTT, where emitting YTT templates for post-processing. So there will be first pre-processing step where we will have some annotations, and we will have to keep them as it is in first round of YTT processing, and then in the second round they will be reprocessed in YTT. So we received some community inputs thanks to Scott and many other community members who provided their use cases. 1 or 2 use cases I have listed over here. So basically we want to be able to output unprocessed templates from YTT. The thing is, this is a requirement which was boiled down from to being able to generate comments that are annotations, but there might be some other approaches as well to handle this kind of request. We can discuss about that more in our Q&A session. So I think we can start taking up the questions and then discuss this. I mean, there are certain blockers for this second problem statement. So we can have some discussion about it as well during our Q&A session. Basically, YAML v3 does not allow emission of comments without a leading space. And this alone makes this implementation little tricky. because YTT's annotations are based on hash at and something, and YAML v3, the way it emits comments is it needs hash space, and that's one of the blocker. And there are certain unresolved issues with YAML comments using YAML v3. Misplaced comments can be critical in this case because our annotations are attached to the nodes, and that is an important factor to consider when we are emitting comments. In case of the first problem statement, this may not be such a critical issue, but we can still go ahead with emitting simple YAML comments. Yeah, and the last one is like, we also need to consider limitations with respect to Starlab code that is embedded in the templates. There can be certain limitations. Yeah, like I think we are open for questions and get some community inputs on this proposal.
Thanks, Varsha.
I
Go ahead, Joe.
gonna go ahead, Rena.
All yours, Joe. Please go ahead.
Oh my, okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Varsha, for summarizing this all up. We like this was one of the, okay, let me go with the title. Emitting comments from YTT templates was one of the most requested features from the community. And one of the things that Varsha noted out when she was going through this is that there, in reality, on those issues that we're asking for comments, there were like these two different problems. And something that, like, personally, I would like to understand it from the community, it is, what is the part, like which of the two problems that we are stating here are the ones that are more pressing for them, so that we try to understand like what are the things that we can do and we cannot do. So I think that personally, that was something that I'd like to better understand. Like if today we have the same pool, but we have these two problems separate, which one would be the one that people would really want to see implemented? And I don't know, like, does anybody like have any idea about that?
So I can share my thoughts on that. For me personally, it would be the YTT comments, because simply trying to manage YTT at scale and trying to build out pipelines around it, having the ability to template out YTT with YTT instead of current like sed scripts and other weird bash magic, would make things a lot more reproducible and better. Now, I also have the huge, I think that there would be more people that would benefit from regular YAML comments because it would make something readable. Right, it would be kind of adding in additional information for end users that would be reading that YAML. So I think that there would probably be more people that would utilize that than the YTT. However, I believe that the amount of use of YTT would be higher. It would just be by a smaller group of people. Right, YTT comments would be higher used, but by a smaller group of people. YAML comments would be used by more people, but overall a lesser quantity.
When you say YTT comments, you're referring to the emission of YTT.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. YTT generating YTT. Right.
Are you gonna say something, Renu?
I think that was our reading also, that there are few super users who would like to have this feature where YTT is able to emit out YTT. And then there are, however, how many people from the community would really want to have the YAML comments generated? Is that really a pressing requirement? And is that something that we should be spending time on? However, the second problem looks like a little more complicated than we had anticipated. I don't see a clear path forward through this proposal on the second one. Varsha, anything on that? Or
I think Varsha in the end, like she pointed it out, like at this point in time, there are like some very big blockers for us to implement the generation of YTT using YTT. And because of that, it's going to be a little bit complicated for us to be managing all this. So like if we think, so like currently the way YTT has like everything organized, it does vendor YAML v2, the YAML v2 library. And there are like already some changes on it from YTT. And these changes were never contributed back, or we're not like using the versions because maybe they didn't make sense for YAML v2. Due to these blockers that currently exist in YAML v3, and we've seen that there has been some friction in the community as well, because there's somebody that is also trying to clone YAML v3 to make it compatible with YAML v2. So there's like some split in the community right now, which is going to make it, I'm not sure, a little bit more complicated for us to adopt YAML v3 directly, especially because the way YTT works is very position specific. And the comment, like the code needs to come out exactly on that particular line, or else it's not going to work, right? And because of like some of those issues that have been open for some time, I think it might make it more complicated. So we have a couple of options here. That would be, we could fork again YAML v3 into our code and start using it and start like fixing all those problems. But that's like additional work that would have to do to add this feature onto YTT. And also there's like, apart just from like the technicalities that we're talking here about, another thing that I don't think we ever really discussed much is really YTT supposed to generate YTT code? Is this like a something that could be achieved in a different way that doesn't make YTT being able to pre-process itself in some way? So I'm not 100% sure like that we ever had this discussion as well. It's, in some sense, it's more like a more philosophical issue to understand like if this is something that we'd really like we'd like YTT to be able to do. I do understand that there are like very specific use cases, like for example, Scott's use case that generates YTT from YTT, like it has like, it needs to run YTT multiple times, like in multiple parts of this process to do multiple changes, right? But is this like a very generalized use case or not? So I don't know. So I do have some questions. So as you might have understood by my monologue here, I do have some questions about the generation of YTT with YTT in terms of like the amount of technical implementation that needs to happen, as well as is more in terms of like the tool philosophy itself. So I don't know, what do y'all think about this, rest of the people? Do you have opinions?
I'll just add on that, like, it's definitely a very complex one, right? And I've tried to find other solutions, but when building packages, or when, like, really whatever it is, when you want to have a pipeline to build packages, and there are a lot of things that you want to template out for your pipelines, for how you're going to package a Carvel package that has YTT within it. There's a lot of things, Cartographer, an open source tool that uses YTT internally within its CRDs. If you want to template any of that out, or do any overlays over anything, you get into issues of, if YTT can't do it, I don't know of any other tooling that could. Right, is where the issue comes, right? If we think of YTT in the sense of how kapp-controller views it, or Cartographer, which is runtime templating, right? So it's templating literally before deploy. There's also the templating step of building that configuration. And whatever the story is about that step has to be addressed somehow, in my opinion, because that's where, in order to scale implementations, we need to be able to also template out anything that has runtime templating, right? Versus YTT without kapp-controller, you generate plain YAML, have Argo, CDR, Flux, pull it down, great. That's fine. But if you need runtime templating, then how do you generate that? And that's where things get much more complex.
Do you know, like, tools like Customize and stuff like that, do they have like runtime configuration? I like Helm does allow you to put some configuration there that it goes to the cluster and stuff like that, and that decides which part of the YAML you want to put out. Does like Customize and such have something like that allows to add some customize on runtime?
So Customize is just plain YAML though, right? So like technically you could output Customize with Customize, because there's nothing special in Customize. That's like with YTT, I could generate Customize. I could also do text templating and then output YTT technically. I could also do text templating and output Helm charts. No, thank you, but I could. Right, so yeah, Customize is a different story though, because it's much more limited than YTT is.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So about YTT, generating YTT, I had a similar issue, what Scott said, in particular within Cartographer. Yeah, I wonder if it's something that could be addressed there, or if it's something that YTT should provide, that capability of runtime templating. But outside Cartographer, I haven't found myself needing that kind of functionality or having issues with that.
Like if you could provide us like a concrete example of what you wanted to do and you were not able to do, that would be cool, Thomas. I'm not saying for you to do it right now. Let's say like if you have some time, just if you could get us that would be great.
Oh, one question I do have, Joel, you had mentioned, right, there's the question of right now we've made changes on YAML v2 in YTT. And then the question is, YAML v3 seems to have way more complaints than positive things said about it in the community. The question is, if it did end up going down the approach of adding or customizing things beyond what YAML's main library does, is adding comments into YAML v2, if we've anyways forked it, a more viable option than bringing YAML v3 and then fixing all the issues that the community is complaining about that they've said, no, we won't fix. And where comments also aren't implemented, it seems greatly because they don't always end up at the right leaves and right places.
So like Varsha noted that that's like one of the options that we have here for the implementation. Do you want to talk about it, just Varsha?
Yes. So basically just one second, let me see. Yeah, the third or fourth option we can think about this, where we can only use. No, I think what you are saying is patch the vendor YAML v2. I think that's the one, Scott, you have pointed to. So patch with specific changes from YAML v3 for emitting the comments. And this has definitely some pros that this will eliminate the need to hard vendor in the YAML v3 code, and it will help us not lose the changes that we did for YAML v2. And this will reduce the code changes and testing efforts. There are certain cons that we identified in this approach as well. So this would need finding all the changes that are done in YAML v3 for emitting comments and applying them separately on our internal code. This would also bring some breaking changes and much larger testing efforts, because with the new marshaller, when comments are included, the YTT may produce different kind of output when we are using vendored YAML v2 and patching the vendor YAML v2 in respect to the earlier YTT versions. And again, the issues like header footer comments, maybe we can work on them separately in YTT side to fix some of the things that we want to customize basically. Yeah, there are a few unknown like unwanted code may brought in because of these changes. Like there are certain issues, for example, here open issue, like go package YAML v3 panics unexpectedly. So we have to make sure that we are not bringing in any such changes from YAML v3 as well. So it's, yeah, so this is a good approach to take. Thanks, Scott, for your comment on this too. So these are certain possible solutions that can be applied later on to YTT, generating YTT, but there are certain bigger blockers, as Renu was asking, like what are the implementation details, but we cannot even go to the implementation details for the second set of problem as of now, because there are certain blockers which are blocking us even to go further.
Could these blockers also like affect the project outside the specific feature request? Like I can see that YTT version 3, for example, hasn't been updated in over a year, and version 2 is from 2020. Like, could it be that, yeah, could that be a risk in general for the project? That we have these upstream dependencies that perhaps, especially version 3, maybe not that robust or reliable.
Yes, I think it's this is not required in most of the scenarios that we have been seeing. We have been getting whatever issues we have been listening from the community. Customers are like, there are certain minor issues that can be fixed with YAML v3 implementation, but mainly we have found this is the only issue where we need to move to YAML v3. Otherwise, as of now, we are good with YAML v2, and then whatever changes we wanted in YAML v2, we have already done that on YTT code.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I do feel like you bring up a good point, Thomas, because like the fact that YAML v3, that in theory is like the new library, having issues and not being updated, bringing it into YTT, it could create more problems for us, right? Because then we would have to do what we did with YAML v2 already, that was like vendor it in, and then do the changes in our side, because if there's no movement on the community for YAML v3, unless somebody like forks it and starts doing the changes, it's going to be more risky as time goes. One of the problems that we currently have now is that, like, for example, like if we implemented if we kept YAML v2 and just added the commenting ability to it, we are diverging even more from what YAML v2 is. And if for some reason there's like any issue that is fixed on YAML v2 side that we want to import in, it's going to be even more complicated. If there's like, let's imagine that there will be somebody that creates a path forward from YAML v2 to a YAML v3 library that doesn't have breaking changes, because that's one of the problems between YAML v2 and YAML v3 is that there are output differences that are not compatible with between the two libraries. There's like somebody that's trying to do an effort to make an YAML v3 library that kind of doesn't have breaking changes, but then that is not like materialized either. So, and like if we go to back to what I was saying, sorry, I lost myself here. So if we wanted to have like a path forward from our YAML v2 to a YAML v3 that is upgradable, if we keep on adding things to our YAML v2 vendor code, it's going to be much more complicated in the future as well. So like there's there's trade-offs like in all the solutions that we have here, and maintainability of the code is something that we should be very careful, especially in libraries like YAML v2, that is basically the core of YTT itself. Right? Like a little change in YTT can make in that library can have like ripple effects throughout the full application.
And
So
I'm also
just want to point out we are over time, so I just want to be conscious of folks' time here. It's 11:03, so if you need to drop, please feel free to do so. And we can continue the conversation now, or we can move it to next meeting, or we can have a pop-up community meeting next Wednesday, if we want to continue this.
Yeah, I do need to drop, but it's been a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Scott, for all of your input. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Scott. Thomas.
What are folks feeling? Should we?
In terms of like steps forward, I think, so I don't think we kind of have like a consensus on any of the documents yet. So eventually we should try to get to a consensus. This, whatever, like if we split these two problems into like two different like requests, so let's for now park the YTT generation with YTT, and let's move that forward maybe a little bit more in the future. For the comments part, I think personally I would like to see how, like in terms of the community, if this is really something that they want or not. Because the amount of work doesn't really matter which option we go with, that we delineate there. It's going to be a big chunk of work. in order for us as maintainers to commit to doing such a change, we really need to have a very big yes, we need this from the community, because the amount of work that's going to have to be put into building this, it's going to be pretty high, and there's a lot of risk. So us as maintainers, we do have we are a little bit fearful to do this change because of that. And we would like to be sure that this is really something that the community wants in order for us to consider putting this into our future backlog. If there's like somebody in the community that is interested in taking a stab like on and have like any suggestion on how to do this, we also welcome that. And if they wanted to even implement this, we are more than happy to lend a hand where we can at this point in time. But personally, what I'd like to see as of right now is to have like an understanding if this feature is it really something that the community wants, or if the feature that the community really wanted was the generation of YTT with YTT, which is like that I'm considering that like as a different problem here, and I'd like to have like that better understanding. And when after that we could discuss maybe like what is like the best solution for us to move forward with this implementation, if this is really something that the community is interested in, because we need to weigh like all like the amount of effort, the amount of tech that is going to come from this big effort that's going to happen, to make sure that everything is aligned correctly.
Yeah, I completely echo what George just mentioned. With regards to the first proposal, do we really have sufficient evidence that community wants us and they are going to use this feature, and how many of them are going to be using it, and what is going to be the effort that we put in versus the benefit that the committee gets out of this, and the risk that we put the YTT project itself by adding the Y3, the YAML V3, in pulling the YAML V3 into this project. Is that sufficient benefit? One question is there. Second question is, for the second part, what are the concrete use cases where this feature would be used, and how are those getting solved right now, currently getting solved? Maybe if we can explore that a little more. That would also help.
I think for me on my end, I will create a poll asking the community to weigh in, just a simple poll, not a survey, but for folks just to vote, a simple vote, I think might be helpful, just to say, please weigh in on these two, which is most important. Or if we wanted to do a survey, we could say which of these two are most important, and give us the weight of how important it is, if is it necessary, and then provide reasons why we wanted to get more into the weeds. Otherwise, I poll on Slack and Twitter, and trying just to get a quick gut check from the community on, which of these two are most important, and then the third option would be neither is really that necessary. That'd be helpful.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay, great. Varsha, do you want to stop sharing your screen? All right, so, there's a big chunk of stuff that we didn't get to today, so we can move that to the next meeting. I might also just put some stuff in the channel to get some comments before then, since I think some have potentially deadlines, time constraints, things like that. So I don't want to have any blockers there for those discussion topics. So next meeting, July 26th, is going to be pretty robust. We have Eugene presenting the what was it? The sub project that they've created at eBay with Basil and YTT. So we'll have a demo on that, and then we'll have all the remaining discussion topics that we didn't get to today, and maybe even more of an update for the issue we talked to about at length for this meeting. So if you're watching this from home and any of that is important to you, you want to chime in the discussion, and please do so. We would love to hear your feedback and know more about how folks are using the Carvel tools and help us with our development process. So again, we meet every second and fourth Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. If you aren't able to make it to the meeting, please add your comments to the PRs that we've had out there, the issues. You can also post in Slack or email us your thoughts. So we'd love to hear them. And that, thank you, and we hope to see you soon.